The young and the restless spoilers in the sophisticated yet treacherous landscape of Genoa City's elite, secrets are the currency of power, and betrayal the ultimate weapon. Holdem Novak, ever the vigilant observer, found himself pressed against the cold wood of the corridor, heart pounding as he eavesdropped on Victor Newman and Audra Charles in a clandestine meeting behind the ornate doors of the Abbott estate. From his concealed vantage point, he learned of a scheme so audacious it threatened not only the fragile peace between the Newmans and the Abbotts but his own standing in their deadly game of influence. Audra, once seen by Holdem as a clever but misguided social climber, now revealed her true colors. She had bartered away her honor to serve Victor's ambitions, offering insider knowledge and manipulation in exchange for promises of power and position. Holdem's contempt for Audra ignited in that moment. How dare she tarnish her own reputation and betray those who had trusted her? More galling still was the knowledge that Kyle Abbott, the man she courted, was an unwitting pawn in her pursuit of Victor's favor. Holdem's loyalty to Claire Newman, whose love for Kyle he deeply respected and fervently protected, compelled him to act. Claire embodied a purity of intention that contrasted starkly with Audra's calculated duplicity. Her devotion to Kyle was genuine, untainted by the hunger for power that consumed so many in their circles. To preserve that love, to shield Claire from Audra's insidious influence, Holdem knew he had to expose the truth. "Stop this charade," he whispered to himself, steeling his resolve. Later that evening, confronted with Audra alone in the Abbey's grand foyer, he warned her in a low, urgent tone, "I know what you and Victor are planning. I will reveal this. And don't you dare underestimate me." But Audra, ever resourceful, anticipated his move. By dawn, Victor himself learned of Holdem's eavesdropping and his threat to lay bare the conspiracy looming behind the gilded facades of Genoa City's most powerful families. Victor's response was swift and merciless. Recognizing the danger that Holdem's revelations posed to his broader strategy of controlling both Abbott and Newman enterprises, he orchestrated a bold plan. Kidnap Holdem Novak, bind him in the seclusion of his private study, and force him to swear silence under the threat of death. Late that night, a black SUV slid into the shadowed courtyard of the Abbott estate. Two of Victor's most trusted enforcers emerged, swift and silent, and before Holdem could react, they had secured him in the back seat and driven him away into the dark. Bound to a heavy leather chair in Victor's dimly lit study, Holdem's wrists chafed against coarse ropes as he faced the man who had become his greatest adversary. The glint of Victor's revolver under the desk lamp was like ice against Holdem's temple. Victor's voice cut through the tension like a sharpened blade, "You will keep your mouth shut about Audra and me. One word of this leaks out, and I will end you." The barrel pressed closer, each breath a reminder of the fragile divide between life and death. Yet Holdem refused to buckle. He met Victor's cold stare with defiance. "You're bluffing," he taunted, voice steady. "You wouldn't kill in cold blood, your empire demands you remain untarnished." It was an error in judgment born from desperation. He underestimated the lengths to which Victor would go to protect his designs. In that charged silence, Victor's finger hovered on the trigger. The study seemed to shrink, the walls closing in as the final moment of reckoning loomed. Outside, Claire Newman paced in Victor's grand entry hall, torn between dread and resolve. Unaware of Holdem's plight, she steeled herself to confront Audra, to demand answers and protect the future she had fought so hard to build with Kyle. Little did she know the depth of the danger, and the price that would be paid for the tangled web of loyalty and betrayal in which they were all ensnared. In Genoa City, alliances shift like sand, and love and ambition collide on the battlefield of family and fortune. As the clock ticked toward an unknown fate for Holdem, every character stood on the edge of a knife: Claire, vulnerable yet determined; Kyle, caught between love and legacy; Victoria, wrestling with her shattered dreams; and Victor, whose ruthless pragmatism threatened to consume both friend and foe alike. The question hung in the tense air. Who would emerge unscathed when the final secret was exposed, and at what cost? Genoa City, a place where fortunes rise and fall like the tides, had long been the battleground of some of the most powerful families in the nation. At the center of this swirling storm stood Kyle Abbott and Claire Newman, two young souls whose love story was supposed to be a beacon of hope amid decades of rivalry and scheming between the Abbotts and Newmans. But beneath the glittering veneer of their romance lurked a dark, insidious plan, one that threatened to shatter everything they had dreamed of. Audra Charles, a woman whose ambition was as sharp as her wit, had carefully maneuvered herself into a position of influence, acting as Victor Newman's most trusted confidant and weapon. Together, they concocted a scheme designed to destabilize the Abbott family from within by exploiting Kyle and Claire's relationship. Their goal was clear: weaken the alliance between the two families and consolidate Victor's grip on Genoa City's corporate empire. Audra, once perceived as merely a social butterfly, revealed herself as a ruthless strategist, willing to sacrifice her own integrity and betray those closest to her in the pursuit of power. Her calculated charm masked the cold calculation that drove her every move. Kyle and Claire, wrapped in the cocoon of their love, were blindsided. The realization that they were pawns in a deadly game came slowly, like a shadow creeping across the sun. The painful truth was revealed through a series of events that stripped away their trust and exposed the betrayal at the heart of their relationship. Kyle, whose loyalty to family ran deep, felt the sting of Audra's duplicity keenly. The woman he had once planned to build a future with was now an agent of chaos, manipulating him to serve a man who had long sought to destroy everything the Abbotts had built. The turning point came one stormy evening when Kyle, grappling with the weight of these revelations, confronted Audra. His heart was torn between the love he once felt and the bitter truth he now faced. The air between them crackled with tension as he delivered the devastating blow. A firm and unyielding rejection of their relationship and the dreams they had shared. "I won't be your pawn anymore," he declared, the resolve in his voice ringing with the finality of a gavel. The future they had envisioned, traveling to Paris, escaping the machinations of Genoa City, was swept away in an instant. The breakup was raw and public, a thunderclap that sent ripples through both families and the social elite. Audra, stunned and furious, struggled to maintain her composure. Her carefully constructed facade cracked, revealing glimpses of vulnerability beneath the ruthless exterior. But her response was swift and vengeful. She was not a woman to be cast aside without consequence. Fueled by wounded pride and the relentless drive to maintain her position, Audra vowed to fight back, to reclaim the influence she had lost and punish those who had betrayed her. Kyle's anger soon turned toward Victor Newman, the man whose vendetta against Jack Abbott had driven him to use every weapon at his disposal, including the destruction of family bonds. Victor's hatred for the Abbotts was legendary, rooted in decades of competition and personal grudges. His goal was nothing less than the complete annihilation of the Abbott legacy. Kyle knew that confronting Victor would be dangerous, but the time for caution had passed. His desire for justice and revenge burned fiercely, propelling him to rally allies and strategize a counterattack. In the midst of this escalating war, Holden Novak emerged as a critical figure. His loyalty to the Abbott family, earned through acts of courage and unwavering dedication, had not gone unnoticed. Jack Abbott, recognizing Holden's steadfastness and strategic mind, welcomed him into the inner circle of family protectors. Holden's knowledge of the city's undercurrents and his unyielding commitment to the Abbotts positioned him as a powerful asset in the fight against Victor's growing influence. Holden's alliance with Jack was not without its complexities. The Abbott patriarch was a man accustomed to giving rewards for loyalty and service, yet the stakes of this conflict were unprecedented. Whether Holden would receive tangible recognition or simply be expected to continue risking everything remained uncertain. Still, Holden remained resolute, knowing that the survival of the Abbott family, and the love between Kyle and Claire, depended on their ability to stand united. As Kyle and Claire grappled with the betrayal and forged a renewed bond rooted in shared pain and determination, they understood that trust would be their most fragile and valuable weapon. They pledged to protect each other and their families from the venomous schemes that sought to divide them. Their love, tested by fire, became a source of strength, a beacon in the dark, guiding them through the storm. Victor Newman, ever the master tactician, watched these developments with cold calculation. His fury over the disruption of his plans was matched only by his determination to crush those who opposed him. Yet, even Victor was forced to reckon with the growing alliance between the Abbotts and their new allies. The battlefield had shifted, and every move carried greater risks and higher stakes. In the shadows of Genoa City's gleaming towers and manicured lawns, the war for power, loyalty, and love raged on. Secrets were weapons, alliances fragile, and the price of victory steep. As Kyle prepared to face his greatest adversary and Claire stood by his side, ready to defend their future, the question lingered. Would their unity be enough to overcome the darkness, or would the sins of the past and the ambitions of the present tear them apart forever? The answer lay in the days ahead, in battles fought behind closed doors and in hearts torn between vengeance and forgiveness. In Genoa City, the only certainty was that nothing would ever be the same again. At the luxurious GCAC, a place where the wealthiest and most influential members of Genoa City gathered, the atmosphere was one of carefully cultivated power. The dim lighting and polished furniture only accentuated the high-stakes conversations taking place within its walls. At one of the expansive tables sat Victor Newman, his steely gaze focused on Audra Charles, who sat across from him, her posture poised, but her eyes betraying a slight nervousness. She was there to report her progress. Her efforts to further Victor's ambitions in his battle against the Abbott family and his relentless drive to control the city. Audra began to recount her efforts at Vibrante, the upscale fashion and lifestyle company she had been running with Victor's financial backing. She spoke with confidence, detailing the recruits she had brought in, the strategic partnerships she had forged, and the whispers of success that had begun to ripple through the industry. She had worked hard to position herself as the perfect ally in Victor's bid for dominance, using every tool at her disposal to gain leverage. Her narrative was one of power, influence, and relentless ambition. Yet, despite her accomplished speech, there was something in her eyes that suggested she knew her place was still tenuous, still dependent on Victor's continued approval. Victor listened carefully, but his expression remained unreadable, betraying nothing. His fingers drummed lightly on the table, a habit that revealed his constant calculation. When she had finished, he leaned back in his chair and let the silence linger for a moment. The tension in the air was palpable, and Audra could feel the weight of his gaze on her, scrutinizing, measuring. "You've done well," Victor began, his voice cold, yet laced with a hint of approval. "But don't think for a second that this will guarantee you anything. You won't see a penny more from me until I see progress on the Kyle front. His reputation has already been tarnished. We need him to fall, and we need it to happen fast. You're playing in the big leagues now, Audra. Show me results, and you'll be rewarded. Fail, and you'll be forgotten." His words were sharp, deliberate, a reminder that in Victor's world, nothing was ever certain until it served his grand design. Audra swallowed hard, her heart racing slightly. She had expected to be challenged, but the reality of Victor's demands was always harsher than imagined. Yet, she didn't let her nervousness show. "It's in the works, Victor," she replied, her voice steady, though internally she was calculating her next steps. "I'm still working on it. Kyle hasn't fully committed yet, but I'll get him where I need him. I just need time." Victor's eyes narrowed as he leaned forward, his expression hardening. "Time is a luxury I can't afford. You know the stakes, Audra. If you're not delivering, you'll be replaced. Do you understand?" Audra nodded, the weight of his words settling like a stone in her chest. But she had come too far to back down now. "Of course. But what about the trip to Dumas's estate? Will Kyle and I be invited?" she asked, her tone feigning casual interest, though her mind was already racing through the possibilities. If she could secure Kyle's cooperation, if she could manipulate him into a corner, the power she sought would finally be hers. Victor paused, his gaze momentarily drifting to the window, as if weighing her question carefully. "The invitation has been extended. You and Kyle are to go, and it's time you made your move. But remember, he added, his voice lowering to a warning tone, I want you to focus. No more distractions. You need to convince Kyle to come around. Once you're alone with him, in Paris, you'll have your chance to bring him to the table. But don't fail me, Audra. This is your final opportunity. Audra's breath caught, but she quickly masked it with a smile, leaning in slightly, playing her part to perfection. Of course, Victor. I won't disappoint you. I'll do whatever it takes. She leaned forward, her voice soft, coaxing, I'll make sure Kyle sees the bigger picture. Just trust me. Victor held her gaze, his expression cold, before he nodded once, a clear dismissal. Good. Now, go. And remember, this is your last chance. Don't make me regret it. As Audra stood to leave, her mind was already turning over the delicate dance she would need to play with Kyle. She had to keep him close, manipulate his emotions, and ensure that he would never question her loyalty, at least, not until she had secured the power she so desperately craved. What she didn't know was that Holden Novak, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, was more than just a passive witness to the conversation. Holden, ever the vigilant protector of the Abbott family, had overheard everything. Hidden in the shadows, his presence undetected, Holden's mind raced. He had always known that Audra was more than she appeared, but hearing her confess her true intentions, her calculated moves to manipulate Kyle and take advantage of Victor's influence, solidified what he had feared. As Audra left, Holden stepped out from his hiding spot, his footsteps silent but purposeful as he approached Victor. He wasn't sure what his next move would be, but one thing was clear, if Audra succeeded in her mission, it would mean disaster for Kyle and Claire, and for the Abbott family. Holden had to act quickly, even if it meant putting himself in harm's way. The stakes had never been higher. Victor glanced up, noticing Holden's presence for the first time. What do you want, Novak? Victor asked, his tone laced with suspicion. Holden stood tall, unwavering. I heard everything, he said bluntly. I know what she's up to, and I know what you're planning. And I won't let it happen. Victor's face darkened, and he leaned forward, his cold eyes narrowing. You're making a grave mistake, Holden. This is bigger than you. This is about survival. Holden met his gaze, unflinching. Maybe. But if you think I'll stand by while you tear this family apart, you're wrong. His voice was firm, resolute. I won't let you destroy Kyle or Claire. Not on my watch. Victor's lips curled into a sly smile. You'll regret this. But fine, you want to play your hand? Let's see how long you last. The tension in the room was thick, charged with the weight of the unspoken threats hanging between them. Holden knew that taking this stand would cost him dearly, but he couldn't remain silent any longer. He had to protect the Abbotts, no matter the cost. As he walked away, his mind raced with plans of how to expose Audra and disrupt Victor's manipulation. Every step he took felt like one closer to a confrontation that would either break or solidify his place within the Abbott family. Audra had played her cards, and now Holden would play his. The battle for power in Genoa City was far from over, and the true cost of betrayal had only just begun to reveal itself.